Jurassic World Dominion. We've got our own resident dinosaur on set. Don't tell him he's not a dinosaur, it'll make him mad. He's a dinosaur, yes. Yes. Boop. Okay, so, as per usual, I don't know what this says about me. I liked the movie a lot more than a lot of other people are seeming to. I guess that probably boils down to the fact that a lot of other people who are making videos are coming at it from a filmmaking perspective. I mean, I'm by no means an expert on filmmaking. I do know some of what goes into it and some of what official movie critics and people who are in the movie making industry go off of what is a good movie or not. Like, a lot of the structuring issues and stuff like that, I don't tend to ever find those to be problems in movies, and that's a lot of what has made other people take issue with films in the past that I have absolutely loved, and a lot of other people have been like, they didn't quite meet the mark, but I was like, it was great! Fallen Kingdom being a prime example, because I walked out of Fallen Kingdom going, this was great! And then everyone was like, no. Maybe I have lower standards, I don't know. But, yeah, I walked out of the theater going, this was great! I'm so dumb. The issues, I know a lot of people, again, were talking about the structuring of it. I didn't find that to be an issue at all. Now, you know, the people who are saying they're structuring issues with the film are probably absolutely right, but for me, as a film watcher, that was a non-issue for me. It didn't get in the way of me understanding the story. I didn't feel that there were any moments that were, like, there's films where there is an amount of downtime and you're just kind of sitting there like, this is getting boring. There are a significant amount of downtimes in the film, but they weren't boring to me. Probably because I'm invested in the characters, and the characters in all the films that I'm really obsessed with are what makes it for me. So the downtimes in the film weren't a problem for me, and the pacing of the film wasn't really a problem for me either. The problems that I have are really nitpicky, and nitpicky things that people have had about all of the Jurassic films that we just kind of have to live with, and that most of us have accepted, you know, us dinosaur nerds, that, you know, we constantly attract attention to these things, even though we know, you know, this is the series, we have to accept it for what it is, and it's Hollywood, we can't expect everything to be accurate. So some of my bigger issues were things that didn't quite really make any logical sense, which were, now, don't get me wrong, I am really invested in the characters of the Jurassic World franchise, so I love Owen, Claire, and Maisie, and Blue, and her baby. Oh my god, Blue has a baby, it's so cute! But I would like to see Owen not be invincible. I mean, I know that he's tough Navy man and everything, but dude went down in a plane, literally went down in a plane crash, and it was not slow. Like, Kayla, you want to try and pull back a little bit, like try and slow your descent just a little bit? No, they went down hard, and both of them come out completely unscathed. But especially for Owen, because we've never really seen, I mean, we've seen Owen in danger plenty of times, and we've seen him in tons of close calls, but we've never really seen him at all scathed. I mean, maybe a few tiny scratches here and there, and I know that part of invincibility of the characters, especially in the newer films, are due to ratings, and they want to keep the Jurassic World family friendly, and what is declared family friendly, especially as of recent years, is getting much more strict. So some of the stuff that flew in the old movies isn't going to fly in newer movies. But still, I want to see Owen get hurt. Like, not fatally wounded, not, like, you know, in the end, when everything's ramping down and it's acceptable for Owen to be out of the action for the last part, I would have loved to see him, like, break a leg or something. In my personal opinion, one of the strongest choices of Fallen Kingdom was actually having Claire get seriously injured. I mean, I do have issues with the lack of blood that came out of that puncture wound, especially for the placing of where the Indoraptor claw pierced her leg. But again, that has to do with ratings and all that. But seeing Claire, a main character, get seriously injured was, you know, I liked seeing that. Not, which, you know, that sounds odd, but I'm not the only one in this boat. I don't want them to be completely invincible. I don't want them to die by any means. But, I mean, give us a little something here. Give us a little reason to believe that they're not superhuman. Another thing that really annoyed me was, and my mom brought up that maybe this was a special rubberized axe, but when Claire takes that axe at the end of the film and just starts hacking away at these, like, 2-inch thick power supply cables for this entire massive island unit thing, I was like, oh my god, Claire! Like, she's gonna die. She's gonna get electrocuted big time. The amount of electricity that's going through these cables. But it just was a non-issue. I mean, I guess my mom could have a point, and it could be a rubberized axe meant to deal with strong voltage of electricity without hurting the person that used it. I don't know, maybe she had major rubberized soles or something. Yeah, but I was freaking out because I was pretty damn sure that Claire was gonna die of being electrocuted right there and then. But didn't happen, and Ellie seemed all good with it too, so. Probably the biggest nitpick I have, which I know a lot of people had a problem with, and this is a point that probably annoyed a lot of people most, and other than the fact that it makes no logical sense, it's also kind of, it doesn't make any sense to the character, and what I'm talking about is Owen doing the hand thing to was it Allosaurus? It was either an Allosaurus or Baryonyx. Maybe I'm wrong and it wasn't either of them. But there was a Carnotaurus and some other large meat-eating dinosaur, and he stops and goes, Some people were complaining that it actually worked. I don't think it actually worked at all. I think that, you know, the dinosaurs were more concerned with each other, and Owen was just kind of there. But, yeah, no, this is not going to work, and it makes no, other than it making no logical sense that it's not going to work, it makes no logical sense for Owen to do it, because Owen is an animal behaviorist, and he's not dumb. He knows that it's not, he should know that it's not going to work on these two animals, because they're adults that have not been exposed to him whatsoever. The only reason it works with Blue is because Owen raised her from the moment she was born, and she was trained to follow that command. People also complained about it working with Beta, and the fact that it worked with Maisie doing it, and also Grant, but I can kind of see it working with Beta. I mean, not in the way that it works with Blue. I think the way it worked with Beta is that, one, Beta is young. She doesn't really know how to respond to these three people in front of her. She does... I mean, she's not unfamiliar with Maisie. Maisie has given her food, and Maisie let her out of her cage in the lab, and has been kind to her, and we have seen that the velociraptors do have the intelligence to associate kindness from people. That doesn't mean that they're not going to attack them later, but I do think Beta is somewhat familiar with Maisie and recognizes that she's not an outright threat. So I think that was more of a reaction of curiosity and Beta trying to figure out what her next move is going to be. Probably my biggest issue with the film was the explanation of Maisie's birth and her mother. In my personal opinion, they probably should have left Maisie as just a regular human clone. You know what I mean. I know it's science fiction, and if you try to put logic into this, the entire series falls apart, because none of it is scientifically possible. But, I can believe that Blue, who has monitor DNA and all that, I can believe that she gave birth asexually through parthenogenesis, which is, that parthenogenesis is the very rare occasion of giving birth without a sexual partner, which has never happened in mammals, ever. Again, science fiction, but, I can believe that it happened with Blue. They don't really explain how it was possible for Maisie's mother, other than she had a genetic condition. It doesn't make sense whatsoever. Also, to the fact that, it's implied that Charlotte Lockwood's genetic condition enabled her to give birth via parthenogenesis. Was that something that she did to herself intentionally? Was there some scientific stuff that she did to make herself pregnant by herself? Or did it just happen? Natural parthenogenesis, that happens mostly among, very non-complex, single-celled organisms and stuff like that, and occasionally among lizards. It just kind of happens when they can't find any mates. I don't know, I'm reading way too much into this, and, Hollywood magic, science fiction, all that, but I didn't like that twist in events. The more I think about the movie, the more that this next opinion becomes more... The more I think about it, the more I'm convinced that my opinion of this next unpopular opinion should have happened in the film, and this is two pretty significant deaths that didn't happen. Let's go for probably the less offensive one, and that is Rexy the T-Rex. This could be swayed by me watching other videos that other people in the franchise, who are fans of the franchise, who have made videos that have said that Rexy would probably or should probably die in the last installment. And I agree. Don't get me wrong, we all love Rexy, but seeing as how much this was advertised as the big finale of the Jurassic series, there should have been something in there that made it feel like the last of the series, or put something down that's like, this is the last, we can't go any further. It just didn't have an impact in the end without about some sort of major death. And, Rexy was the main candidate for that. And it did look like she was dead for a while. And, it was sad, but I think Rexy should have stayed dead. It's not a happy notion, but I feel like that would have been the best way to go about it. And the reason they probably didn't was the backlash they got from Jurassic Park 3 when the Spinosaurus took down the T-Rex, and everyone's like, no, T-Rex is king! Yeah, but I really think that Rexy should have died. Sorry, Rexy. Next one. Don't hurt me. Now, a lot of people would probably agree that there should have been a major character death in this film. A lot of people are probably going to disagree with me, but my vote is Ian Malcolm. I mean, don't get me wrong, I do like Ian Malcolm. However, I feel like his death would be the most logical out of anybody that is in our group of characters. It would probably hit. I mean, personally, I'm not as emotionally attached to the old characters as I am to the new ones. I don't know why that is. Maybe it's because I'm younger. But it's still, Ian Malcolm dying still would be very hard-hitting. And for who his character is, I feel like his death would have been most suiting. He's the one that has always said that this is a mistake, we shouldn't be playing God, we shouldn't be doing all of this, and he is slightly antagonistic. He's not a villain by any means whatsoever, but he can be a tiny bit full of himself, which I think, he's come a long way since the first film, but in the scene where he picks up that flaming branch to distract the Giganotosaurus, I actually whispered, he's gonna die. And I think it would have been quite artistic filmmaking to just have the Giganotosaurus just chomp him and him to just be gone. Like, no extended death, just, utter shock, just chomp, gone. Which, some people are probably going to be mad with that opinion because, they would think he would deserve a bigger death. But that shock value, I think, would have been a very good idea, filmmaking-wise, story-wise. Also, what led me to believe that was the way the Giganotosaurus just chomps down on that flaming locust, just like no big deal. I was expecting it to just, like, take Malcolm in one go, flaming stick and all, just gulp, and everyone would be like, oh my god! Yeah, I mean, maybe not. Again, going on the theory that we should have had at least one major character death. In my opinion, it should have been Ian Malcolm. Not necessarily so. It could have been anyone else. Personally, I would have been a lot more affected if it were Owen or Claire. I mean, we can't kill Maisie because she's the child, and kids don't die in Jurassic Park, although that would be very, very shocking if Maisie had died. But I don't think that I don't think the franchise could feasibly go in that direction. Okay, an obvious highlight of the film is the new dinosaurs that we got to see. There is quite a few new dinosaurs that you see in the background of scenes that aren't really featured that big, and I'm not going to go into those, but the obvious big additions to the film were Therizinosaurus, which I pretty much screamed when I first found out that Therizinosaurus was going to be in the film, because I've been obsessed with Therizinosaurus ever since I found out that it existed, because it's an ugly duckling, so to speak. It's the odd one out in dinosaurs. It's just, it's so bizarre looking, and it has those big claws, which makes you think this is a predator, but it's not. It's a herbivore, which, I did have an issue with. Yeah, this little deer is just standing there, and this thing just comes up, and it's like, move! Just shish kebabs this thing for pretty much no reason, other than the fact that it's standing there. I guess you could argue that it's very territorial, and it was probably blind, so, it hears something, it can sense that something's there, so just for, better safe than sorry, we're just gonna skewer this thing. But, yes, loved the Therizinosaurus. I do think it was a little bit cheesy how they had Rexy and the Therizinosaurus team up in the end to defeat the Giganotosaurus, but I don't have that big of a problem with it. My main problem with it is that I do think Rexy should have died. Probably my favorite one, it wasn't as prominently featured as I would have liked it to be, but yet again, there wasn't much of a place for it to be featured anywhere else. But Quetzalcoatlus, just incredible. I mean, I'm kind of the cliche that, the bigger not necessarily the bigger the better, but the bigger the more interesting to me. So having the biggest flying dinosaur, biggest pterosaur that has ever existed makes me absolutely love Quetzalcoatlus, and I was so excited when I found out that it was going to be in the movie. I don't take issue with it attacking the plane whatsoever, because it's obviously very territorial, and you can see this in lots of other flying animals today that are extremely territorial, and if they could take down a plane in their territory, they probably would. The Giganotosaurus, I've heard it pronounced both ways. They say Giganotosaurus in the film, so I'm going to say it that way, and that's oh, hello, bunny rabbit. Come here. That's the way that I've always pronounced it, but I've heard it pronounced both ways. Anyways, Giganotosaurus. Do you mind? I'm kidding, go save lives. Giganotosaurus. Wasn't incredibly excited to see it. I mean, I don't know, I could have gone with or without Giganotosaurus. Also, the weird fact that they keep saying it was the biggest predator to ever exist, which is factually incorrect, because it was Spinosaurus. Although I guess you could discount Spinosaurus because we've learned that it was actually quite aquatic. It wasn't completely aquatic, but it did likely swim a lot more than it walked on land. I don't know, but either way, the largest predatorial dinosaur ever was Spinosaurus, not Giganotosaurus, and it's more of a theory than anything else that Giganotosaurus was bigger than T-Rex. It's kind of like, well, it could have been bigger, it could have not been bigger. We don't really know. We've never found official proof that Giganotosaurus was definitively bigger than T-Rex. They could have been, the same size for all we know. Or, it could be true that Giganotosaurus was bigger. It's more of a theory than anything else, and it's stated as fact in the film. I don't know. Again, Hollywood magic, all of that. It doesn't have to be accurate, but it was just weird on how they said multiple times that Giganotosaurus was the biggest predator to ever exist, when it really wasn't. What? What do you want? What do you want? What do you want? Here's okay. Dimetrodon was a complete surprise to me, and I was pretty excited about that, because I'm a huge geek for anything prehistoric. It doesn't have to just be dinosaurs. Pretty much anything that was That's long extinct, that was big and kind of monstrous. Anything in that sort of category, I'm a huge fan of. Initially, I confused and had them switched in my head, and I thought it was Gorgonopsid and not Dimetrodon, but it is Dimetrodon. I just had them confused in my head. But regardless, Dimetrodon, I'm not, like, necessarily obsessed with Dimetrodon, but I am a fan of that, like, category of, they're not technically dinosaurs, but I was excited to see Dimetrodon portrayed in the Jurassic series, because as we all know, they're by far the best dinosaur. You don't get better dinosaur portrayals than in the Jurassic series, because they're the only ones that have the budget to produce the models that they do. We also had the Pyroraptor, which was the feathered raptor that attacked Owen and Kayla. I was excited to see a feathered raptor. Since I grew up with unfeathered dinosaurs, I still have a bit of a begrudging time accepting feathered dinosaurs, even though I know that it's a scientific fact now. But the feathered Pyroraptor did look phenomenally good, and no real complaints really about it. Not the most exciting thing, but no complaints. Okay, so I know that there is a significant portion of the Jurassic fandom that comes just for the dinosaurs, and I understand that, and, there's no problem with that. However, in order for me to be this level of obsessed with a franchise, I have to connect to the characters. And whereas I enjoy the characters from the original 3 movies, I can't really explain what it is about Owen and Claire that got me emotionally invested in them. But, I mean, it could have something to do with Bryce Dallas Howard and Chris Pratt, and they do have a good on-screen chemistry. But something about them, I love these characters. And Maisie too, because she's a kid, and I have an insane maternal instinct, so I pretty much have to. For the same reason that I absolutely adore Baby Beta and want to protect her from all things and everything, and yeah, so I am emotionally invested in these characters, and some people could care less about Owen and Claire, and that's completely fine to me. That's your own prerogative, but me personally, I love where they ended up. I could and probably will do an entire different video about how I personally enjoy where this movie ended up for their characters as character arc and all that. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed where Claire, Owen, and Maisie end up, and don't get me wrong, it's far from a fairy tale ending, even though it might look like one. In all reality, they're going to have to let Maisie live in the real world, and that would involve basically turning themselves in as kidnappers, because looking at it in a law standpoint, that's basically what they've done. It's not fair, but there's going to be a custody battle in their future, and I hope that they would win. I don't know that much about law, but, I mean, Maisie has no next of kin. I mean, it could be argued if Maisie is technically even a person or not, which is insane. I don't agree with it at all, but it could be. Yeah, but I love where they ended up as a family. I mean, the writers know where to they're sharpshooters. They know how to get you right in the heart. I mean, when the car rolls down that hill and they're all upside down, and Maisie sees Owen and Claire, and she's like, "It's my parents!" So, like, ugh. Like, oh my god, it's so sad, it's so happy, oh my god. Yeah. Same for when Blue and her baby reunite. It's like, oh my god, they missed each other. Yeah, and I don't have, well, for me, it kind of seems like Ellie and Alan Grant ending up together in the end is a little bit of fan service. Like, I mean, you could argue that Owen and Claire ending up together is also fan service, but Ellie and Alan Grant seemed like kind of a done deal to me in the third film, and structural story-wise, you could see this as a good parallel. We have Owen and Claire, who could have fully had the potential to go in the direction that Ellie and Grant took in the third film, but they didn't. They ended up putting their differences aside and ending up being together because love is all that matters and all that. Whereas Ellie and Alan couldn't do that, and they ended up, well, Ellie ended up remarried with kids and apparently divorced, but Alan ended up alone, and, you know, he could, as he said, I'm not happy. So, you know, you could see that as a parallel, and I don't know. I mean, I don't have a huge problem with them ending up together, but I'm not sure if it was the best logical and storytelling point. I'd probably have a different opinion if I were as emotionally invested in them as I am in Owen and Claire. Again, it probably has something to do with my age. I mean, I'm 22. I was 15 when the first Jurassic World came out. So, you know, that probably has something to do with it. In my opinion, Blue is also a character, and I like where she ended up. You know, she and Owen have both accepted that they are no longer this raptor training duo, and, you know, they are different animals. He's a human, she's a raptor, and she can't be his pet. She can't be caged, and they both accept that. I think that Blue is intelligent enough to still have some trust in Owen, and I think we see that even though she does lash out at him when her baby's gone, and still does have potential to be a danger to him and his family. I think that Blue is intelligent enough to still have some trust in Owen, and, you know, that's probably why she lives in the same area that he does with her baby. But I also think that she's smart enough to realize that she can't live as his pet, and that she doesn't want to. And she's probably intelligent enough to hold a bit of a grudge, because she was kind of, you know, abandoned by Owen in the first Jurassic World. And then he brought her to this main world, and everything's strange, and, you know, he's nowhere to be found, and also, you know, he wants to put me in a cage, and I don't like that. But yeah, I do like where Blue ended up, and, you know, in reality it's probably going to not be the greatest ending for her and her bloodline, because the only way, you know, she could produce her own more babies and make her own little pack, but from there they're just all going to be inbreeding, and it's not going to last long. Especially since it's not just normal inbreeding, it's inbreeding of identical, basically clones. They all have the exact same genes, so this isn't going to go well. But, you know, party pooper. But I do like where it ended up, and Beta is adorable, and, yeah, no complaints there. The Locusts, I don't have as big a problem with the Locusts as many people do. I do feel like it's a logical point. Like, I can see this happening in real life if we had that kind of genetic power. They're by far the scariest thing to come out of this franchise. I agree with Claire's statement in the end of the film. No one said there would be bugs. Especially big bugs, okay? No. Just, no. Nightmare fuel, I would say kill them with fire, but they technically did, even though the fact that they are apparently somewhat fire retardant makes it all that much more worse. And I don't know why they apparently have a thirst for blood. They don't eat people, but they attack them for seemingly no reason, and I do not like it. No, just bye, be gone with, no more giant locusts, okay? Okay, well, yeah, I'm going to shut up now, because if I don't now, I never will, because I could drone on literally endlessly about these things. On that note, thanks for giving me a platform to drone on endlessly about these things, because my friends and family are tired of hearing of it. Yeah, that's all for now. I'm literally going to go obsess more over dinosaurs and Jurassic and that kind of stuff. And I gotta go find my dinosaur, because he's skittered away somewhere. At least he's not gonna eat anyone. Yeah, bye. Zeus, where'd you go?